Good morning. My name is Madalina Boyko, and we are back live from DevTalks 2023. We are continuing our DevLive interviews, and I'm happy to introduce you my next speaker. Hi, James Musson. He is Vice President Architecture at LucaNet. Hello, and
Hi.
welcome. I'm happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Cool. James, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a few things about LucaNet, the company
Sure.
you're representing?
Yeah. So you already introduced me. I'm James Musson. I have been involved in software engineering for nearly 30 years now, across lots of different roles. I've been a software engineer for quite a lot of that time. I've been an architect. I've been head of engineering. I've been team lead in London, which is an interesting market. And more recently, I joined LucaNet, a German company. So that's a bit of a change of culture for me.
Can you tell us a bit about LucaNet? What do you guys do?
I can, yeah. So LucaNet, as I said, is a German company. We're headquartered in Germany, but we have a worldwide presence. We have partners all over the world. And we write financial performance management software. So we have a product that was started over 20 years ago now, and it helps financial professionals, so CFOs, group accountants, financial controllers, really get control of their financial data. It's an absolutely fantastic product, and I've worked for lots of product companies before, and to have users actually come up to you and say, "Can we give a testimonial because we love the software so much?" is very unusual, right? It just doesn't happen, especially when they're accountants, right? Accountants don't get excited about too much except for numbers. But the software is really awesome, and I think part of the reason why it's so awesome is it was started by somebody who had a problem and they couldn't find software to solve that problem, so they built it themselves, right? And the approach they took to building that software was quite different than you might normally. They didn't use a whole load of off-the-shelf libraries or products. They built a lot of technology from scratch. And that's given us actually quite a unique selling point in that our software does stuff in a way that competing software doesn't. So, it really makes a difference to the users because they can analyze their data really, really quickly and do some very complex processes like financial close, financial consolidation, group reporting, but in a very simple way because it's very well thought out software.
Yeah,
So that's it in a nutshell.
you know what they say, you have a lot of data, but then what do you do with it and how do you visualize it? And that's
Exactly.
the kind of thing that really makes the difference nowadays.
Exactly.
You said a lot about the software and how cool it is and how impressive. I'm wondering, is there anything else you love about working in this company at LucaNet?
There are lots of things. I don't think you can create a great product without having great people and a great culture, right? It just doesn't make sense. And one of the things that really attracted me to LucaNet, because as I mentioned, I only joined recently, so I've only been here about 3 months, was the combination of fantastic people, a very open, welcoming culture, great technology, and a really, really great challenge. The people managed to come together and have fun, but still be serious about building an awesome product and getting stuff done. So it's almost the perfect environment from that perspective.
Okay. So let's imagine that someone would decide to come and work for, or should decide to come and work for your organization. What would you say are 2 or 3 reasons why they should definitely do that?
Well, I think I've probably already mentioned them in the sense that they're the same things that attracted me, but it really is that combination of the challenge, the technology, and the working environment. So not only do we have a great culture and great people, we also have really good kind of processes to back it up. So we have a policy we call LucaFlex, which allows people to really fit working around their lives because the world is changing, right? And it's not a case of you come to the office from 9 till 5 and just sit in a cubicle and work. Nowadays, people want to be able to work from the office sometimes. They want to be able to work from home sometimes. They want to be able to go to their kids' sports day or take their kids to the doctor or any of that kind of stuff. And so we allow people to basically work when they want, and they can work a bit more on one day and a bit less on the other, or bank up the time and take a day off. It's really very flexible and yet still somehow works for the whole company. So it's really great.
That's very nice to hear because flexibility nowadays, it means something's
Yeah.
different than, I don't know, 10 years ago or maybe even 5 years ago.
Hugely different. Like I say, I used to work in London, right? And going back 10, 12 years, I used to commute into London every day. It took me an hour and a half to get there, an hour and a half to get back. It was absolutely packed, but that was it. You had to be there and you had to be at your office, and the world is not like that anymore. And it's amazing that it changed so quickly, really.
It's true, and we adjusted.
Yeah.
Tell me, is there a surprising or a fun fact that you can share with us about LookAnet?
Yeah, sure. So I already shared one, I guess, which is that it was started by a guy who was an accountant and just had a problem, which is always a good way to start. But someone at our stand, which is just over the back there, asked me yesterday, why is it called LookAnet? It sounds Italian.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it does. The reason it's called LookAnet is because it's actually named after a 15th century mathematician called Luca Pacioli. And he is widely regarded as the father of modern accounting because he invented double entry bookkeeping. So there's a fun fact. That's
Yes,
why the product's
it is,
called
yeah.
LookAnet.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
What should we expect from LookAnet in the next 2-3 years?
I guess the main thing, the one word I'd say is growth. So last year we were acquired by a specialist software private equity fund, and they're investing heavily in LookAnet. So recently we bought another company called Amana who have complementary products, and we're building our product into a full corporate performance management suite. And that took our staff count from 550 to over 700. And we've just opened up an office in Bucharest, which is why I'm here. And we plan to hire 120 engineering staff in the next year or so. And frankly, it's only going to keep growing, right? The product is already fantastically successful. We're expanding across the globe, and so there's going to be huge demand. So yeah, growth.
So we will keep an eye on you guys.
yeah. We're already on the subway because of this, this event, and you're going to start seeing us everywhere, hopefully.
Cool. That's always good news.
Yeah.
We like that. James, how do you see the future of work?
Well, so I think it's very difficult to predict. We already talked about the huge change in the last 10 years or so, really in the last 3 years, let's face it. And I think it's very hard to know where that's going to end up. I think there are two really kind of disruptive influences. First is this change in our working mode, right? We're going from in the office to working at home to hybrid. And I think a lot of companies are struggling with it and still trying to work out how you actually balance that. But it does also bring a whole bunch of opportunities because now that you're not worried about having people in one location, it gives you the freedom to hire people anywhere, right? So you have much more distributed teams. And so I think, again, we're still coming to terms with exactly how that works, how to keep the interaction, how to, everyone says water cooler moments, how to kind of recreate those casual conversations and the kinds of things you used to pick up in the office. So I think there's a whole area to explore there, and maybe there'll be some technological solutions that will help. I don't know, VR or avatars or I don't know, maybe. But I think the other disruptive influence is AI, right? And it's really exploded in the last 6 months or so. These generative AI models. So from a software engineering perspective, you've got things like GitHub Copilot, you've got ChatGPT, OpenAI, and I think we're only really just scratching the surface of what's possible with those kinds of technologies. And I think that it's very easy to say, oh, we're all going to be out of a job because AI is going to take all our jobs. I don't think that's true at all. We've had many cases in the past where people have said we're all going to be out of work for, insert reason here, computers or whatever. But I think it's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the nature of our jobs. So as a developer, for example, I think you're going to spend more time interacting with AI tooling to do the boring things, which frees you up to do some of the more interesting things. I think that's generally what happens, right? There's never going to be a lack of demand for software. In the past, I've thought, well, how many developers do you really need in the world? And it seems more, always more, right? So I don't see that changing anytime soon. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting time. And in some ways, I think it must be very daunting for people who are just coming into the industry now, having to start working places where they don't get to meet people every day and have all these new disruptive tools coming out. At least I have my 30 years of experience to look back on and say, I've been through some of these things before and it'll work out, and I have that experience to draw on. But yeah, it must be really daunting if you're younger.
Thank you, James. I have one last question because you mentioned the 30 years experience, and I was curious, what drew you to the tech industry?
Well, yeah, that's a bit of a funny story as well. I wasn't really that interested in it, to be honest. I used to like computers when I was young. When I was 8 or 10, my dad bought me a computer, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. For those of you who are old enough to remember that stuff. And I programmed it and I liked it, but I never wanted to do it for a job. And in fact, I did my degree was in mechanical engineering. But when I left university, I just ended up getting kind of a temporary job for a company that doesn't exist anymore, but it was massive at the time, and that's Digital Equipment Corporation, one of the pioneers of digital computing. And while I was there, I just saw a whole bunch of problems that could be solved with software, and I just thought, well, I'm going to teach myself to program. Again, I mean, I've done it a little bit on the spectrum before, but do it properly. And so I just taught myself on the job, and that was it. I've never looked back. I've been doing it ever since. So it was a very happy coincidence for me. But funnily enough, when I was at school, computing wasn't really a serious career. It wasn't even mentioned by my careers officer when I went to see him. They were just like, well, you can do the normal things. You can be an engineer. You can join the police. You can join the army. All that. And computing wasn't really a thing.
And yet, 30 years later, it just happened. Every day.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's amazing.
Thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure to have you. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the day, and I'll see you around.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely will enjoy the day.
Cool.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot.
soon.
Bye-bye.